Illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
The whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warn us not to go to. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp.
Do you feel safe for her?
No, so that will have to stop.
Right.
We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen, kind of that nowadays, Nigel, what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened,
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no!
We would urge her to reconsider, and whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
If you had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, what would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. Across.
Well, a very good morning. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Slightly shorter show today, just until 12 o'clock because of the FA Cup coverage that we're doing on the station as well. We'll talk to Matt Vickers, the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Shadow Home Office Minister. Lots around today. Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, saying that a Russian toxin killed Navalny. We'll talk about Restore Britain as well, the new party that Rupert Lowe has set up. We'll talk about this astonishing story on the front page of the Sunday Times as well. Labour activists paid for a smear campaign against journalists at the Sunday Times. Very, very strange story. And Labour says it's confident there are no more friends of paedophiles at the heart of its operation. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the Royals and Andrew and what's going on with him, because there is so much to talk about. That is just a story that is developing every single day. Leaking secrets allegedly, meeting a Chinese model at a secret dinner, as Epstein boasted. I've got the UK sewn up. The Royals cannot be above the law. That's what the Chief Prosecutor says, and there's just so much in all of that. Problems for Keir Starmer as well. I've been tough, I've made mistakes, but I will lead Labour into the next election. He's surrendering to the EU on net zero rules as well. So much to talk about. Let me know your thoughts. And of course, we're celebrating 15 years of Larry the Cat at Downing Street as well. It's his big anniversary. Today is on the 6th Prime Minister. So whatever you think, let me know. 0344 499 1000. You can text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or you can send me a WhatsApp voice message, less than a minute please, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss here on Talk. Well, let's talk about Yvette Cooper. She is the Foreign Secretary, of course, and she's been on Sky News this morning saying all sorts of things, including that she's refused to rule out any more paedophile associates being found at the heart of government. She can't guarantee that, of course, we know that Lord Doyle, Matthew Doyle, has had an association with a paedophile. He's lost the Labour whip. But also the overarching problem is, of course, the Mandelson scandal and the major issues that Keir Starmer is dealing with. Let's speak to Matt Vickers, who is the Shadow Home Office Minister. He's with us now for the Conservatives. Matt, good morning.
Good morning, Peter. How's it going?
Yes, very well, thank you. What do you make of what Yvette Cooper said?
I think it's terrifying. I think anybody sat at home just sort of bearing in mind the fact that we've had Peter Mandelson, a man appointed to the most prestigious diplomatic position that this country has to offer. He's gone out there. It's then turned out that Keir Starmer knew all along about his association with Mandelson, with Epstein, and the fact it carried on after Epstein was charged. We've then got a second hit. I mean, I don't know many people who associate with many paedophiles. Right at the heart of government, we had Mandelson. We've now got Matthew Doyle, who was number 10 comms director under Starmer, appointed, given a peerage, made a lord. And here we are, another guy associated with a paedophile. It's traumatic. I mean, it's devastating. In terms of trust in politics, people lost trust in politics when this government made lots of promises and broke them. They lost trust in politics.
I think they lost trust in politics under your party as well. I think there are a lot of problems with trust in politics. For example, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, saying do one thing, and here he was fined by the police for doing another. Trust in politics is not just about Labour, it's about your party too.
I think people will look at birthday cakes and that scandal and they'll make their own minds up about it. But when they contrast that with people who are associated with some of the most vile people ever to walk the planet.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Matt. There's no doubt that this is a bigger scandal. What I'm saying is that trust in politics didn't just start disintegrating under Labour.
I think there's always questions and challenges around trust in politics.
Yeah, it doesn't help when a Conservative Prime Minister says one thing and does another.
If you are a pensioner, if you are a farmer, if you are a waspy woman, if you run a small business, in fact, if you pay council tax and you weren't going to pay a penny more, you've lost all trust in this government. It's broke promise after promise after promise, U-turn after U-turn after U-turn. And now we've got the Foreign Secretary unable to say that there are no more people associated with vile paedophiles at the heart of our government. I mean, for all the question marks around trust in politics and all the different things that have come over the years, the expenses scandal, decades of things that have bumped public trust, when you've got people with associations like this at the very heart of government, and they aren't even elected to government, they're appointed to these jobs. This is someone, Keir Starmer, if you've got links in the Labour Party, if you're known to the right people in the Labour Party, then your links and associations with these people are forgotten, no matter what vetting brings up. We've now asked, well, Mandelson was pushed, kicking and screaming, into publishing the documents around the vetting so that we know exactly what he knew and when. We've asked the same of Matthew Doyle. He's now had the Labour whip removed, which tells you something. The guys that had the whip removed, but Starmer's still refusing to show us what he was told and when.
And Matthew Doyle has apologised, we have to say. I just want to ask you about a story, front page of the Sunday Times. I think this is an astonishing, really sinister development, actually. The group that helped elect Sir Keir Starmer as Labour leader hired lobbyists to investigate the personal, political and religious backgrounds of a Sunday Times journalist behind an article about secret donations that funded its work. This is Labour Together. It was headed by someone who's now an MP, a guy called Josh Simons. We've asked for him to come on this morning. And Labour Together paid £36,000 to a US public affairs firm called APCO to examine the backgrounds and motivations of reporters behind a story before the general election. The aim was to discredit the Sunday Times' reporting by falsely suggesting its journalists might be part of a Russian conspiracy or had relied on emails hacked by the Kremlin. Neither of those things is true. A 58-page report was produced, including almost 10 pages of deeply personal and false claims about Gabriel Pogren, the Sunday Times Whitehall editor. We've had him on this programme a number of times. He and Harry York, the newspaper's deputy political editor, were named as persons of significant interest. It was shared with Labour figures, including present cabinet ministers and special advisers, forming the basis of a whispering campaign in Westminster against Pogren, York and the Sunday Times. What do you make of this, Matt? This is really sinister.
It's scary, isn't it? Journalists who ask too many questions get smear campaigns thrown at them, not by some sort of, by the government, by a state actor, by a guy, Starmer told us he was whiter than white.
Well, it wasn't the government, in fairness. It was Labour Together.
well, it was the Labour Party, the people who are now running the country, the government in that sense. But the fact that this guy who came in, he didn't really have anything exciting to say, he didn't really jail anybody up, but he told us he was going to be whiter than white. He was going to bring an end to all the birthday cake scandals and this, that and the other. And then we see this smear campaigns taken on, looking to see what dirt they can throw at journalists who ask too many questions. It's terrifying when you look at, I mean, these people are there to scrutinise government. They're there to keep the public informed. And the answer to that is to smear them, find whatever dirt you can on them to shut them up. It's wrong. It's terrifying, actually.
Josh Simons MP, we've asked him on the programme today, no answer just yet. He says of the reporting, he says this is nonsense. APCO, the firm, were asked to look into a suspected illegal hack which had nothing to do with the UK journalist at the Sunday Times, Guardian or any other brilliant UK newspaper. APCO's investigation never fully got to the bottom of this. Those who know me know that I think the world of journalism is vital to our democracy. There are many questions I'd like to ask Josh Simons this morning. Josh, if you're watching, do come on anytime between now and 12 o'clock. And Stella Creasy, a Labour MP, says, I'm genuinely shocked to read this and what happened to Gabriel Pogren and Harry York. The ecosystem of think tanks and campaigns around a political movement should nourish it with ideas and energy, not pollute it in this way. It is shameful. Let's talk more about politics in this country and Restore Britain, which is a new political party set up by Rupert Lowe. And Mark has been in touch and says the Conservatives are even more irrelevant than ever with the launch of Restore Britain. Please remind Matt Vickers that the Conservatives had 14 years and created this immigration invasion that is destroying Britain. The country will never forget or forgive the Conservatives, says Mark. On the point of the setting up of Restore Britain, we've got Advance UK, we've got Reform UK, we've got a number of new political parties, and political parties have been around for a long time, like the Green Party, for example, that's enjoying quite a resurgence. All of them a threat in some way to the Conservative vote, Matt.
I think, do you know what, there's options out there, there's lots of parties emerging, there's lots of noise, there's lots of things going on, lots of tweets, lots of press releases. The reality is the choice with the Conservatives, I'm not going to defend everything that went on. We've pointed out, Kemi and I both pointed out things that the previous government, of mistakes that they've made and errors that were made. But the reality is we're out there making a pitch. Kemi is making a great pitch. She's the only leader out there who's giving a right-wing offering on the economy. She's the only leader out there who's being very honest with the British public.
Why are Reform UK not right-wing on the economy?
Well, they're the people who are telling you that they'll go out there, nationalise this, that and the other. They're telling you that the two-child cap, oh, well, we should consider pulling that back. They will spend more on benefits. They will grow the size of the state. The Conservative Party think that the people who are best to solve people's problems is those people, not governments, not increase spending. But the other thing is, when we give you a plan and we tell you we're going to spend something on it, we tell you where the money is coming from, and that's exactly what we've done. Kemi's gone out there. She's identified her £47 billion of saving. She said half of that's going to go into paying down the national debt. She said that she is going to cut back on that welfare state so that actually the government, the state, is fair on those people who do the right thing, who go out, who work hard, rather than under this government, if you work hard, you are paying more and more in tax. If you don't work, you're getting more and more in benefits. It's wrong. It's not fair. The government needs to be on the side of those who do the right thing.
Speaking of being on the sides of doing the right thing, what do you think and what is your view on anti-immigration demonstrations held outside a Royal National Lifeboat Institution headquarters to demand the service stop acting as a taxi service for asylum seekers crossing the Channel? You're a Shadow Home Office Minister. Dozens of campaigners gathering at the charity's gates at their premises in Poole and Dorset, claiming its lifeboats are facilitating illegal immigration. What do you think?
I think there's a huge debate around the RNLI now, and people who've been donating to it and now questioning its role in supporting migrants. But the reality is this thing is all about the migration crisis, full stop. That pressure is felt by people across the country. They're deeply concerned about what it means for housing, what it means for public finances, what it means just to a general sense of fairness, in fact, what it means for their security in their community. And as a result, we're seeing people speak out and protest in whatever way they see fit, and they're right to do so. This situation has reached ridiculous levels since this government came in. The last government, as I've said, made mistakes on this front. Since this government come in, it's gone up nearly 50%. There are more people in hotels. Less of those people coming in illegally are being removed. We have to get to the point where people who arrive here illegally, people who break into this country with no right to do so, are detained and deported. Until we do that, everything else is tinkering around the edges. You can't just rock up in Britain illegally and expect to stay and expect to benefit from all the hospitality that this country has to offer.
Tell me about your thoughts on Keir Starmer's plans to ramp up its net zero targets ceding control over energy policy, a part of closer alignment with Brussels. He was in Munich, of course, for the security conference. He would see net zero as part of security. This includes a dynamic alignment of British law with EU rules and the promotion of renewable energy. Net zero was something the Conservatives brought in as a law, but Keir Starmer wants to speed that up, requiring the UK to decarbonise not just electricity but also heating and transport rapidly. Of course, Kemi Badenoch has changed Conservative policy on this. So what do you make of what Keir Starmer's saying now, Matt?
I think Kemi's plan put forward is a very sensible one. Where there are opportunities with the green stuff, we should take them, but we shouldn't be forcing things down people's necks. They're causing huge costs to the British taxpayer. They're making families struggle to heat their own homes, to afford the things that need to be able to get on in life. But actually, this idea from Keir Starmer that you get closer to the EU, you make us a rule taker. We won't have a say in the rules. We'll just have to obey the rules that Europe impose on us. And then you look at one of the biggest things that we've got to do. We've got to get rolling on nuclear. We were not doing as much as we should have been doing. We now got the opportunity to move that forwards, to look at what it means for our energy security, for the cost that people are paying for their energy. The reality that this will prevent us using subsidies. It will damage state aid. It will slow down our investment in nuclear. It's a lose-lose situation. You know, it's all about closer integration with Europe, but at what cost? If we're going to be on bended knee, doing whatever we're told to do by the EU, unable to develop our own energy mix in the way that we need to in our national interest, then it is just a disaster for us.
Thank you very much indeed. That is Matt Vickers there, the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Shadow Home Office Minister. Thank you to Steve, who says, I like and respect Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe. Indeed, I'm a member of Restore Britain, but after Rupert's latest announcement, I will have to relinquish my membership because the main party is Reform UK. Advance and Restore must know that it takes time to organise a political party. It takes money, it takes time. I've followed Nigel Farage since his Europe days and have always supported the same path, never changed, been proved right in many events that he has predicted. So for anybody to say they don't trust him seems odd to me. Ben and Rupert do seem to be obsessed with Farage, especially Ben Habib. Very interesting that Steve has that opinion. We're going to be talking as well later on in the programme about all the continuing problems, the Epstein scandal and what the royal family are dealing with, and the fact that there are further revelations today about Andrew apparently leaking secrets, meeting a Chinese model at a secret dinner, as Epstein boasted, I've got the UK sewn up. Well, Nigel's given me a ring from London on this and has some thoughts. Nigel, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you, Peter. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I think this, for me, and I think for you, and for most people listening to this show, this is the biggest domestic news story in our lifetimes, the Epstein files. It involves the heart of government. It involves the heart of the royal family. I cannot think of a bigger news story. And I personally think that if Andrew were to be prosecuted and Mandelson, it would unleash the biggest rolling snowball of poo coming down the road that will explode with so many names coming out of it that it would probably bring down the monarchy.
Well, Nigel, I think a lot of what you say is absolutely right, and it's also the fact that there's so much still to come. It's every single day we're getting more and more and more of this.
It's just remarkable. Of course, the person who's got the golden key to everything is Ghislaine Maxwell, and you know, she's in jail. I'm of the firm belief that Epstein did not kill himself; he died by other means. And I'm just wondering what's going to happen to Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm surprised she never did a deal with the Department of Justice.
Or maybe she has, because she's pleaded the Fifth Amendment to the US Congress, although Donald Trump has said that giving her immunity is just not a priority.
No, but it is a shocking story.
Yeah,
what does she have to tell? What will she tell? And will she tell anything?
Well, exactly. Nigel, many, many questions still to be asked. Thank you for your call this morning. That's Nigel. Give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. You can do the same thing and send your voice notes in on that number too. Stephen in Bristol says, good morning, Peter. Larry the cat is the only one in Downing Street that does the job he's employed to do, says Stephen. 15 years. By the time someone wrote a book about him. Lots to discuss on the debate desk. Phil Dave will be joining us in just a second. We've got a new panellist as well, shaking things up a little bit. Leo Watson, who's a political strategist. We'll see what he has to say about all the different issues today and what you have to say as well. So please do give me a ring. Let me know what you think. Whatever is on the tip of your tongue, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Mike on Twitter, who says MPs such as Matt Vickers come on to Peter Cardwell shows simply dismissing any part he played in allowing thousands of illegal men into the country. Not me, Gov, nothing to do with me. That angers me more than many things. Another person says we will never trust you again, talking about the Conservatives. And another person says these Tories who come on defending their party, when I remember Johnson promising if you cross the channel and enter Britain illegally, we will send you back. Yet he lied. The facts and numbers are proof Conservative Labour are responsible for mass immigration. Well, whatever your opinion this morning, let me know. 0344 499 1000. There's a lot that we can criticise Labour for, and this wasn't the Labour government that I'm going to talk about. It's a group that helped Keir Starmer get elected as Labour leader. They hired lobbyists to investigate the personal, political and religious backgrounds of journalists behind a critical article about secret donations that funded the work of this organisation, Labour Together. Now, it's a really sinister development. I know this might seem a little bit like, oh, journalists talking about journalists and all the rest of it, but actually it's about free speech in our society. It's about the freedom of the press. It's a really weird and sinister development. This is Labour Together, which was headed by Josh Simons, who's now a Labour MP. We've asked him to come on the programme this morning. Any answer from Josh yet? Has he got back to us, Josh Simons? He hasn't got back to us, I'm being told. They paid £36,000 to APCO, a US public affairs firm, to examine the backgrounds and motivations of reporters behind a story before the general election. Well, on the debate desk this morning to talk about this and everything else that we're talking about this morning, I'm delighted to welcome Leo Watson, political strategist. Lovely to have you on the debate desk. Hi, Leo.
Hello.
And Phil Dave, regular, of course, Talk presenter. How are you doing, Phil?
Good morning, Peter. I'm fine, thank you. Yes, hopefully you are as well.
I am indeed. Can you just take us through the story a little bit? I know you've been looking into it, Phil, because I don't know about you, but I just think it's astonishing.
Yeah, it's unnerving to say the least, because I mean, when we always say that there is corruption within our politicians, and now this if it's not corruption, really stinks to high heaven, to say the least. So Labour Together, I mean, you basically sort of summarised it perfectly anyway, but Labour Together, which is a group that is linked to Sir Keir Starmer's rise in the Labour Party, now it apparently paid US-based firm to investigate and to produce a detailed report on Sunday Times journalists. Now, these Sunday Times journalists had uncovered undeclared donations that are linked to that group, and the report apparently included unfounded claims about the reporters' backgrounds and alleged links also to Russian interference, and it was circulated within political circles, so it prompted accusations that staff sought to discredit and ultimately intimidate the free press rather than just accept the scrutiny of the group's findings. And this is what is particularly unnerving about it. It's basically the political elite throwing their weight around, allegedly, and potentially making, should we say, trouble for journalists who are simply doing their job.
Can I just say, Gabriel Pogran and Harry York, but particularly Gabriel Pogran, who happens to be a friend of mine. I know him, he's been on my programme a number of times. This guy's mantelpiece is groaning with awards. This is one of the most decorated journalists in Britain. He's barely 30 years old. I think he's 31 or 32, something like that. Maybe not even as old as that. He is a brilliant journalist who has upset many people, and clearly he's upset these people. Josh Simons, it should be said, the MP, we have asked him on, no reply yet. He says, and this is the Guardian reporting as well, Labour think tank close to Morgan McSweeney paid firm to investigate journalists. Labour Together hired company to look at Sunday Times and Guardian reporters after article about donations. Documents suggest. Josh Simons MP says this is nonsense. APCO were asked to look into a suspected illegal hack which had nothing to do with any UK journalists at the Sunday Times, Guardian or any other brilliant UK newspaper. APCO's investigation never fully got to the bottom of this. Those who know me know I think the world of journalists and that they're vital to our democracy. Well, the fact is that there are a number of journalists, I mean, they had the dossier. They know that there was 10 pages of this dossier that looked into the background of these journalists. So that's what I'd love to ask Josh Simons about. Another Labour MP, Stella Creasy, says, I'm genuinely shocked to read this and what happened to these journalists. The ecosystem with think tanks and campaigns around a political movement should nourish it with ideas and energy, not polluted in this way. It is shameful.
I look forward to hearing what Sir Keir Starmer has to say about it.
Well, indeed. Leo Watson, what do you think?
I think 36k is a rip-off, if nothing else. I mean, bloody hell, that's an extraordinary amount of money to do this kind of work. It's hugely embarrassing, but let's not pretend that Labour Together are alone in threatening journalists at the moment or in recent history. I mean, we had a Prime Minister who was going to go around and beat somebody up in order to stop a story. We had Michael Fabricant who was going to punch somebody in the throat. And we had a Reform staffer the other day grabbing a journalist, manhandling them, pushing them out of the way when they were asking perfectly reasonable questions. So, you know, I fear the issue is endemic, and, you know, I know we don't want to talk about it here and be navel-gazing about journalists reporting on journalism, but it's a hugely, I agree with everything you've said, it's a hugely problematic story, and, yeah, something needs to be done.
And a free press is just such an important thing, and journalists should be able to do their work. Not every journalist is perfect, of course, and we should scrutinise the journalists as well. If they make mistakes, we'll talk about them, of course we will. We talk about the BBC, for example. Very little coverage, Phil. I don't know if you noticed the huge hundreds of thousands of people in Munich protesting about Iran. Didn't seem to be on the BBC very much. Weird that,
you know,
wasn't it?
Funny, I can't understand why that would be the case. I mean, as we know, the BBC and Sky News are so utterly obsessed with what's going on in the Middle East. Oh, sorry, no, sorry. What's going on between Israel and the rest of the Middle East. That's what they're obsessed with. And because this ultimately involves the Iranian regime and ultimately, shall we say, the way that they treat their so-called society. Unfortunately, this is why they're quiet. They're totally stunned because it just doesn't suit the narrative.
I didn't see a single thing on the BBC. There's a lot of the BBC. There's a lot of it. And I didn't listen to every single bulletin. I didn't see every single thing. But you can see on the screen there, if you're watching, in Germany, hundreds of thousands of people. They were in London as well. There were some protests here as well. In fact, I spoke to a few of the supporters. There's a lovely woman I was chatting to and her husband, I think, at the tube station as I was going home yesterday. I just said, look, this is really important. Keep going. I can't cover it all the time, but I try to cover it on my shows as much as I can. And she was kind of, not, I think, because of anything I said, but just because of the cause and how strongly she felt about it. She was draped in it in an Iranian flag, the real Iranian flag. flag and was talking about, you know, she was close to tears. I don't think it was anything I said. I think it was just she was having an emotional day. And yet we hear so little about these protests, Leo.
Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, can you blame the BBC at the minute there? I think they might be running scared of Donald Trump lawsuits coming out of their ears. And
yeah, I can blame them.
Although he's on the side of the Iranians.
Blame them.
Yeah, of the Iranian people.
Yeah, but we don't know what he's going to do next and how big this invasion is going to be when it comes, which I think inevitably it will come. So,
but you see, the problem is, you say invasion, I say rescue, to be honest with you, because I think the people of Iran, the true Iranians, the Persian people, actually do need saving, because after so many decades of the Western world just looking on and tutting and saying, oh, isn't it terrible what goes on over there, and not actually doing anything, I think it's about blooming time that the West actually used what little force it's got left for good, and to topple this revolting regime once and for all.
I think if only imperial saviour worked quite so simply, then yes, and so straightforwardly. But you know, this is an issue where the West has failed time and time again, and it's hugely problematic. So.
And what Leo says has certainly some traction for some Israelis as well, Phil, who I speak to, who say, look, if the Americans go into Iran, we know what's coming. We know, you know, we're many Israelis I speak to say there's an uneasy ceasefire at the moment, things are a bit better for us. If Trump goes into Iran, we know what's coming for Israel.
We do, but we also know what's coming, period, because the truth is that even if America decides at this point in time not to go into Iran and try and topple the regime, Iran is not going to stop. And let me be really clear about this. You're not talking about decent, civilized human beings here. The Iranian regime are really akin to the worst kind of animals you could possibly think of. This is nothing to do with their religion. This is to do with the fact that in the name of Islam, in inverted commas, they carry out the most revolting, disgusting, anti-societal acts. Forget anti-Western. This is just inhumane behaviour. And as far as I'm concerned, if Donald Trump doesn't go in, then probably no one will. And Iran's not going to stop.
We're going to talk more about what's happening to the UK political system. Restore Britain, a new political party, has been established. Lots of you getting in touch about that. We'll talk more about that after the break on the debate desk with Phil and Leo. So stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Jason in the Lake District, who says, I bet Phil Dave doesn't have any enemies. He seems such a lovely fella. I'd love to go for a pint with him. He seems so interesting, and I bet he's great company. There you go, Phil.
I can only say it's amazing how a person doesn't know someone.
Can I just point out, I am Phil Dave's sworn enemy. Yeah. I know we appear to get on air, but we actually hate each other.
Yeah, behind the scenes, we can't talk to each other.
That's it.
Yeah,
don't actually acknowledge one another. We're like Taiwan and China.
Can you stop looking at me, please?
We don't officially acknowledge each other's existence.
It's very frosty trying to keep each other apart in the office, honestly, guys.
Thank you.
That was a joke, by the way.
Thanks to everybody for getting in touch, including Dave. He says, good morning, Peter. The Conservatives have no chance of getting in. That's why so many are joining Reform UK, as they believe Nigel will be the next Prime Minister. I was hoping that would be the case until so many Conservatives have been accepted into Reform UK. Now, I'm not really confident Reform UK will actually get in, says Dave. Sarah in Morden in South West London says, if Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, she just says if Ben and Rupert get on well, as if they're sort of Sting and Madonna. I do want to be clear that they're not, and who they are. So Ben Habib, who's obviously of Advance UK, and Rupert Lowe, who's set up Restore Britain. If they get on so well, says Sarah, I wonder why they don't start a party together. In the beginning, doesn't make sense that they've started separate parties, and 2 days later, Ben is talking about them joining together. Doesn't sound as if people who get on particularly well are talking for when it comes to their need to get revenge on Nigel. Nobody would know who either of them were if it weren't for Nigel. And Christina has been in touch on this too, saying, hi Peter, Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe are disruptive. Loyalty is not one of their features, as we have witnessed. Ben Habib is obsessed with Nigel and has not really mentioned the British people at all. I'm glad they're not in Reform UK, says Christina. Well, I'm sure that Ben Habib would deny that he's obsessed.
I don't think that's strictly speaking true, but anyway.
Well, let's hear a voice note on this. Let's see who this is from. This is from Nick.
Morning, Peter. It's Nick from Loughborough. I used to have the greatest of respect for Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, for that matter. But now I think that they have let their egos get the better of them, and they're prepared to throw the country under the bus by splitting the right-wing vote and ensuring that we have another 5 years of a socialist government. And they're doing this to maintain their own political relevancy. And to be honest, if we do have another 5 years of socialist government, these two men are rich enough to not be affected financially. They're not going to suffer the deprivations financially that the average man in the street is going to suffer by having another 5 years of Starmer's government. Have a good day, Peter.
Nick, always common sense from Nick Moore from Loughborough, and thank you for that. Leo Watson and Phil Dave are with me on the debate desk. Leo, what do you make of these new political parties being established?
Well, I mean, I have to disagree with your call in the sense that I don't think it's going to split the right-wing vote at all. I think this vanity project from Rupert Lowe is going to go absolutely nowhere. I mean, the hilarity of setting up a vanity project after citing a vanity project and you're disgusted with that vanity project in the first place, it's a farce within a farce. So I think this will wither on the vine and die. I think that Reform will be obviously the strong party and may well be our next government.
It's interesting coming from Northern Ireland on this, because what unionism, which is the cause that I feel very, very strongly about, one of the many issues for unionism over the years has been all these extra little parties. It used to be the Ulster Unionist Party was the big one, David Trimble's party, then it became Ian Paisley's party, the DUP, which is sort of still the dominant party in unionism. But then you have a traditional unionist voice, Jim Allister, we've had him on, he is a constituency, the other smaller parties that come out as well. There have been many of them over the years, some representing loyalist communities and so on. And this is actually just, you know, the UK Unionist Party, the Progressive Unionist Party. There's been so many of them, the plethora of them. What shows when a political grouping and indeed a political movement kind of splinters here, and the fracturing of the right in Britain, surely that's going to gift power to the left, Phil?
Well, I would have thought so, but what's always interesting is the language that Nigel Farage uses. He always says about this two-party system, and now Reform has come along and it has broken the two-party system. Well, it may well be the case, but what's particularly curious about this is that politics is usually either left or right. Okay, yeah, there are some centrists, but let's be honest, most people either lean to the left or to the right. Now, how the extreme that might be depends on the individual. But so all I see is when you start breaking apart the different leanings of politics, whether you're breaking apart the left or breaking apart the right, then absolutely that's got to mean that if one side is more united than the other, well then clearly that other side stands to benefit from that fracturing. Yes. So I actually think that anyone who is on the right, whether it's Conservative, Reform or Advance or Restore, whoever it may be, they really need to bang their heads together and get over whatever differences they might have, because if they don't, I really do fear that we could be looking at another 5 years of these morons in government at the moment.
It is a very interesting point, actually, that the Green Party is splitting the left as well, Leo.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, the disastrous Corbyn project as well, and Zara Sultana. So... But
your party, yes. I haven't even remembered your party. I do apologise about that. Yes,
yeah, exactly. I was struggling to remember their names.
Well, it's interesting with your party because they had said that, well, some of the polling would have suggested that if they'd just got their act together, they could have taken perhaps 10% of the vote. So this is a problem right across politics. And perhaps, Leo, I wonder what you think of it being just a symptom of how fractured the country is as well.
Oh, absolutely. But also, I think a symptom of how big the egos are of some people who want to go away and create these additional parties. I mean, I'm interested in the thesis that you have that the right needs to unite. Are we talking about the Conservatives and Reform uniting as one party, or as a coalition?
Well, what do you think? Should they?
I mean, I think it would be the end of the Conservative Party as we know it. I mean, I just don't see what incentive there is for them. It's the last chance of survival is to forge a new path and a separate path that brings back the politically marooned and politically homeless that their parties lurch to the right has created.
Can I just point out really quickly that when I say about uniting, I think we all know Conservative, Reform, Restore and Advance, they're all going to join together. But when I say unite, that is actually quite different to forming one party. I mean unite by the sense in exactly the same way that we've seen in previous elections, some political parties make political pacts with others in terms of strategic voting.
Although on that exact point, Nigel Farage still feels very bruised by the guarantees he was given by Boris Johnson in 2019 when the Brexit Party stood down in many different constituencies. Let's bring in Sandy in Suffolk. She's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Sandy, thanks for the call. You're on not just with me, but with Phil and Leo as well. What would you like to say this morning?
I had a couple of points, Peter, if I may, please.
Of course.
The first point I'd like to make about Restore and Advance is this. Runcorn and Helsby was won by Reform on just 6 votes recently.
That's right, that's Sarah Puchin's constituency, yeah.
It is. If a Restore candidate had been there and took just 10 votes away from Reform, we could have ended up with another socialist party in charge. We don't want that. I think Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe are doing this as one big vanity project. I don't think they're doing it for the good of the country. I think they risk, even if it just took a handful of votes away from Reform, it could end up with us having some...
But Sandy, we live in a democracy. People can set up their parties if they want to. People can stand as independents if they want to. It's often people are told, vote strategically or vote tactically, for example. I just think people should vote for who they want to vote for, because then they will feel connected to the political process.
Another thing I don't think they've thought through is this. I did a lot of research into how much it cost to stand as a parliamentary candidate, because I would have liked to have done it, Peter, but I can't afford it.
It is expensive. Do you know what, Sandy? Go ahead.
The personal cost to a candidate that's not funded by a party is between 11,000 and 250,000. It's in a marginal seat. It's nearer 250,000 pounds.
Do you know what?
How do they think they're going to get 600 candidates who can afford? That from their own back pocket?
Well, do you know what, Sandy? There's a brilliant book about this and how much it costs. It's called Why We Get the Wrong Politicians by Isabel Hardman. I think it's probably the 3rd best political book that's been written in the last 5 years, and I would seriously recommend that you perhaps give it a look. Sandy, I tell you what, stay where you are. We'll pull your fader down just for the moment, but I do want to come back to you in a second. We'll find out what Phil and Leo think, and then we'll come back to Sandy. Leo first.
Yeah, I find it funny when people refer to Labour as a socialist party. I mean, that's not the discussions we have in the Labour Party at the moment. I can tell you that for free. I think it's quite ironic.
You're a Labour member?
Absolutely, Labour member since 14 years old, and have worked on Labour campaigns throughout my career. I think
you're not a socialist?
I am socialist, absolutely, but I don't think the Labour Party is a socialist party.
Okay, all right.
And I don't think Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves would recognise that at all. But it's ironic that I think we might need a more socialist system in order to get candidates on the ballot paper, as Sandy just said. So that's probably my biggest opinion on that.
Phil?
Yeah, look, I think just to pick up Sandy's point where she was saying about it being a vanity project for Rupert Lowe and for Ben Habib. I mean, I don't know Rupert Lowe that well personally. Yes, I've spoken to him, but I don't know him. I certainly know Ben Habib, and I genuinely get the impression that it's not about vanity. It is that he's probably quite, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but probably quite disappointed, shall we say, with the direction that Nigel Farage has taken reform in, and that's up to him if he is disappointed in how it's gone. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my impression I get. So I think that sort of to say that it's vanity, I don't think that anyone goes into politics purely on vanity, but it's possible that
it's part of it. It is part of it.
No, but that's what I say, maybe there is an element of it somewhere along the line. But look, having had conversations with him, and I know you know Ben Habib as well, I just think having conversations with him, he does genuinely care about what's happening in the country.
He does care about the country. He believes in what he says, but he also has a major personal beef with Nigel Farage. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, I've interviewed Ben Habib many, many times. Let's bring Sandy back in for your impressions of what Leo and Phil have said, or any additional points you'd like to make, Sandy.
Well, I was trying to be polite when I said Labour were socialist. I think they're more communist, and I think the Green Party are even worse than that. But can I just make one more point about Restore and Advance uniting, and it's this. Restore have a lot of members who are on the far right, some of whom have hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter. I've had debates with one particular account who has said quite openly they would have me deported because my grandparents were Polish on one side and from the Republic of Ireland on the other. Now, if
well, that's appalling. That is absolutely appalling, Sandy. No, that's not Rupert Lowe's fault.
No, but if his party is attracting those sort of members, how will they feel when a joint leader, e.g. Ben Habib, is half Pakistani? Now,
well, that's up to them, but what I would say, Sandy, is that all political parties are supported by and attract people with weird and wonderful views. I'm sorry you went through that, Sandy. That is not a pleasant thing to say. It is not a pleasant thing to experience, but I think you know, Labour Party member Leo will agree with me that there are lots of weird and wonderful people in those parties who say things, and the leaders can't be held responsible for them, can they?
You meet the best and the worst of people in every political party, unfortunately.
Yeah. Sandy, listen, thanks for your call. Really appreciate that. That was Sandy in Suffolk there. I want to talk, I want to talk just a little bit more about what Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, has been saying this morning. She has defended Starmer's standpoint on being wary of reform and the Greens. And it's really interesting what Starmer was saying yesterday in Munich at the Munich Security Conference about essentially saying if you vote for Reform UK or for the Greens, that we could be getting closer to war. Let's just have a look at what the Foreign Secretary has been saying this morning on Sky News.
And we have seen both Reform and the Greens undermine that commitment to the NATO alliance. I think that is hugely important because I think our national security...
What has Nigel Farage said or done that undermines NATO?
Which they are not doing so.
What has Nigel Farage said or done that undermines NATO?
We've seen Reform have not taken seriously the threat from Russia. They have refused and failed to do an investigation into Russian interference within their own party, despite the fact that their Welsh leader was convicted of the links, the real serious problems in terms of the links to Russia. They have not taken seriously.
Yvette Cooper there, the Foreign Secretary, speaking to Sky News a little bit earlier on. Phil, has she got a point?
No, because I believe that Labour haven't taken in the least bit seriously the threat that China or Iran poses to this country.
But in terms of their own specific party, Reform UK's leader in Wales, albeit for a short period of time, is currently in prison because of his links to Russia.
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting for a second that every single person associated with Reform is perfect. I know they're not, but therein lies the differences. I'm prepared to admit that. Labour seems to look with rose-tinted glasses, and possibly you seem to be an exception to this, Leah, but Labour seems to look with rose-tinted glasses if every single person associated with their party is absolutely wonderful. I personally think that there is a major threat going on from China to the West at the moment that is being completely ignored under the guise of, oh, it's just some sort of economic relationship or like building of what do they call it?
Do you think MI5 are actually not taking China seriously, really?
I don't say MI5, I say that from the government.
Well, the government oversees MI5. They tell MI5 what to do, to some degree.
So I was going to say, I think MI5 sort of, yes, it's more they report back to the government based on their findings.
Operational independence.
It doesn't necessarily mean that, that they follow that. Look, I saw, would you have this rotten Chinese super embassy in the middle of London being approved? Do you know what I mean? They don't take the threat that seriously.
Your take, Leo?
Yeah, well, I think Labour need to concentrate on Labour. I mean, they're scared of their own shadow, and rightly so. We've got a lame duck Prime Minister who's not long for this world, but why not focus on a new vision? Why not focus on what you're actually going to do for the country and how you're going to improve the country? People are sick of you talking about the Greens, talking about reform, being scared of your own shadow. I think the point of China is an interesting one. If you don't make friends with them, if you don't make economic ties with them, what do you do? Do we go to war with them? I know you love war. You were talking earlier about going to war with Iran, so maybe we go to war with China. Do we think we beat them too? Good old days.
I don't think that I said I love war, but I do believe there are some actions that are necessary in order to
Should we go to war with China? War with China?
I don't think that they are the #1 priority at the moment.
They are a priority for on your list.
But make no mistake, there is definitely a threat there that should not be ignored. Now, look, I don't personally think that sort of war is the answer to everything, but unfortunately there are some nations where the only language they speak is fighting fire with fire. So if you're referring to Iran and the Iranian regime in particular, you can't negotiate with people like that.
Well, less war and more jaw in just a few minutes here on Talk. If you want to get your view on the air between now and 12, the number is 0344 499 1000. Leo and Phil will be back with us in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. I promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch, including Tad in Cambridge, who says the main and wholly altruistic aim must be to rid this nation of highly damaging socialism, followed by the other political parties who facilitated left-wing ideology through their indolence. All else is peripheral, including the purpose of splinter parties who risk wrecking everything for their own vanity. They cannot win and are irresponsible and deluded for thinking they can, says Tad. Angela says, I agree with Sandy's call earlier on. I think these egotistical people must be part of something bigger. I smell a rat personally, and I think this is orchestrated to stop a Reform UK government. So thank you for that. Also, Sean in Grimsby says, even though I like Rupert Lowe, his problem is that unless you're interested in politics and listen to shows like this, nobody has heard of him, including my own missus. There are lots of politicians that loads of people haven't heard of. Honestly, I mean, we think a lot of the time, and I'm guilty of this as well, we think that, you know, everybody knows who Wes Streeting is, for example. We talk about him probably every day. His name comes up on this show or on the station for some reason. But most people out there, if you shone a light in their eyes and said, name me 5 members of the cabinet, most people can't. Talk viewers and listeners are hyper connected. They're really interested in politics. They're really interested in what goes on in our country. They really care. But a lot of people can't. And actually, when I was a special advisor in government, it wasn't the 10 past 8 on the Today programme, the big prestigious interview that I was interested in. It was the 15-second clip on Virgin Radio or Smooth or Magic. That's what I wanted for my minister, so they would get through to people who had no interest in politics or didn't think about politics all the time. In fact, Tony Blair said in his autobiography that the hardest thing for a practicing politician to remember is that most people, most days of the week, don't give politics a second thought. I hope you do. I know you do at home on Talk, and indeed tomorrow Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm going to be filling in for Ian Collins between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, so I hope you can join me for those shows too. I want to just have another look at what Yvette Cooper has been saying this morning, because there's a lot of controversy, not just about Peter Mandelson, Jeffrey Epstein, but also about Labour's former communications chief, a man called Matthew Doyle, Lord Doyle. He was elevated to the House of Lords. Then the whip, his right to be a Labour peer, was taken away from him, and the vetting process is something that Yvette Cooper has been talking about this morning on Sky News. Let's just see what she's been saying.
What I can say is that we have strengthened the processes in the appointment of the new ambassador to the US. We did strengthen the processes and to ensure in advance of the appointment, and I take that very seriously. Though, of course, there can always be real concerns about people, about unknown cases where people have committed crimes in different areas. There always has to be a robust response, but you also have to make sure that you've got proper processes in advance.
Yvette Cooper speaking there from Munich. She's there for the security conference. She was speaking to Sky News, the Foreign Secretary. Leo, what do you make of this? How big a problem is it for Labour? You obviously can't guarantee, as we were speaking about earlier, all sorts of weird and wonderful people join political parties, of course, and some very committed and diligent people as well. But we have had two Mandelson, obviously a massive scandal. The Prime Minister looked as if he might go on Monday. The Lord Doyle scandal, perhaps less well known, but nonetheless of concern to many people.
Yeah, well, I think the big issue is actually we don't need a vetting process to tell us that Mandelson was steeped up to his eyeballs, really, in the Epstein stuff. And people know Matthew Doyle incredibly well in the Labour Party. They know who his friends were. They know what he believes. So I think they're just errors. I do think we obviously need an incredibly tight vetting process for all candidates. But I think we're trying to throw the vetting process under the bus for some terrible political decisions.
And the point with Peter Mandelson was the vetting process was done after his appointment was given. But if you had an employee, no matter how good that employee was, who says, well, actually, they've been sacked twice previously for basically lying, one about Jeffrey Robertson giving him a load of money for a mortgage, and secondly, for getting a passport for the Hinduja brothers, well, maybe you might just think, hold on a second here, is this the right person to be ambassador to Washington?
You just need to have read a newspaper in the last 30 years to know what Mandelson was up to. So, as I say, I think the vetting process has been chucked under the bus. I feel sorry for the vetting process, quite frankly. The issue is terrible political decisions.
Yeah, what did you think? Well, it's just typical, isn't it, of basically it's someone else's fault. And I'm not saying in this instance it's Yvette Cooper's fault, you understand, but at the same time, I'm slightly sort of fed up of hearing politicians saying, oh, it wasn't me, Gov, this is terrible. This is shocking. We're outraged. We're just as outraged as you. Well, no, sorry. It's people within your party have made this decision, and it was a really, really bad decision. I just think that actually politicians would garner a heck of a lot more respect if they just had the backbone to say, yeah, do you know what? We really messed up on that one. We're really sorry about that. Actually, if they did that, then people might just believe that they were sincere rather than actually blaming everyone else.
We're just coming up to the news, but just in a few minutes, I wonder if we could talk about a little bit about what's happening with the EU and the idea that Rachel Reeves is talking about greater alignment. Lots of people saying that actually a Swiss relationship with the EU might be a good idea. Other people saying that might be a betrayal of Brexit. Leo, what's your thought on this as a Labour member?
I mean, align with the EU, I think it's the last desperate hope of a lame duck Prime Minister. I really do.
When will he go, do you think?
Well, again, he's bad at politics, so he'll go at the worst possible time for the Labour Party in the country, I can tell you that. I think he should go, if all things being equal, a year before the next general election, so he can give the new person a chance to say, this is my vision, here's my platform, I've started, you've seen the green shoots of growth and promise in this country, vote for me for 5 more years.
And Keir Starmer soaks up all the toxicity then.
Exactly, that would be the best political time to go, but who knows?
And on the EU and on Starmer?
Yeah, I was going to say, on Starmer, I personally think he should lead Labour into the next election, but that's just because I want a very different outcome.
Vote here.
But anyway, if you put that to one side, on the EU, I believe that it is not really a shock in the least because, let's be honest, Starmer has not exactly been secretive in the fact that he wants the UK to basically fully rejoin the EU. He obviously knows that he can't do that because then he would be just accused of being anti-democracy, but he wants to do everything but that in name. And so I think that if we actually gave Britain's departure from the EU a proper chance and we had politicians who recognised the potential that there was there from leaving the European Union completely, then maybe then the country would see a bit more success rather than this half in, half out.
Just briefly.
Isn't the whole point of leaving the EU, though, that we can do deals with whoever we want now? We're not saddled to the EU, but we don't want to do deals with a major superpower like China.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that discussion another time. For the meantime, thank you both very much. Phil, Dave, regular on the Debate Desk, talk presenter. Great to have you in the studio. Leo, your first time on the Debate Desk. I hope it is not the last. You will certainly be receiving an invitation from us. Leo Watson is a political strategist. Very interesting to hear from him. Very interesting to hear from you as well. Brad in Cambridge says, I used to have a lot of respect for Ben Habib. However, he now leads nothing but a protest party whose only prospect is to deny votes for Reform UK, a party with a realistic chance of governing. I do agree with his comments, but that doesn't excuse what he is doing, and I'll never forgive him for that, says Brad. Mike in Milton Keynes says, I have concerns that it will take minimum 6 months for Reform UK to leave the ECHR. If it happens then, Nigel must call a national emergency immediately to deport illegal immigrants. I do hope Nigel is not like other leaders being all talk simply to get our vote. And one more from Wayne in Rugby says, I see this merger going exactly the same way as your party. In the medium term, there'll be a conflict between the two egos of Habib and Lowe, and it'll ultimately end up as a nothingness party. The general public knows little to nothing about either of them, and they're far to the right to make any meaningful impact in a general election. Reform has to be centre right to appeal to enough voters and get into government, and once in government, then they will be able to move further right if required. Slowly, slowly, catchy monkey, says Wayne. Lots more to discuss in the next hour. Stay with us here on Talk.
Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
The whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warn us not to go to.
I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp.
Do you feel safe for her?
No, so that will have to stop.
Right.
We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen, can't it? That nowadays, Nigel, what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened,
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Grover says no! Grover says no! Grover says no!
We would urge her to reconsider, and whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
If you had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, what would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp. We've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, it's just gone 11 o'clock. It is Sunday morning. Thank you so much for your company here on Talk. There's lots to discuss this morning, including the position of Keir Starmer and the right of UK politics, because we have three parties now: Reform UK, well, Conservatives as well, make four, Reform UK, Advance UK under Ben Habib, and now Rupert Lowe has set up a new political party, Restore Britain. He's their only MP. What do you think of that? 0344 499 1000. Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, she's been out today saying Labour has strengthened its vetting process after the Mandelson scandal. She's also defended Starmer's standpoint on being wary of reform and the Green Party. She's in Munich for the Munich Security Conference, where there have been hundreds of thousands of people who have been protesting in support of Iran. That you won't find that on many parts of the media, it must be said. Starmer himself says, "I've been tough, I've made mistakes, but I will lead Labour into the next election." May not be his decision, of course. And lots more on Andrew and Epstein too. Those revelations still keep coming. He apparently leaked secrets and met a Chinese model at a secret dinner. Epstein himself boasting, "I've got the UK sewn up." What do you make of all of that? 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 12 o'clock. It's great to hear your views. We'll get them on the air. The main number, of course, 0344 499 1000. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute, please, to 0344 499 1000. Same number for calls, same number for WhatsApp text messages. Keep them coming in. Get your voice heard here on Talk. Well, let's hear what Yvette Cooper has been saying this morning, the Foreign Secretary. She's been speaking to Sky. She talked about the party strengthening its vetting process in the wake of the Mandelson scandal. This is what she said.
What I can say is that we have strengthened the processes in the appointment of the new ambassador to the US. We did strengthen the processes and to ensure in advance of the appointment, and I take that very seriously. Though, of course, there can always be real concerns about people, about unknown cases where people have committed crimes in different areas. There always has to be a robust response, but you also have to make sure that you've got proper processes in advance.
She also defended Keir Starmer's standpoint. He's been in Munich too at this huge World Security Conference, and he talked about being wary of reform and the Greens, implying that a vote for Reform UK and the Greens could actually lead us closer to war. This is what Yvette Cooper said when challenged on that on Sky News.
And we have seen both Reform and the Greens undermine that commitment to the NATO alliance. I think that is hugely important, because I think our national security...
What has Nigel Farage said or done that undermines NATO?
Which they are not doing so.
What has Nigel Farage said or done that undermines NATO?
We've seen Reform have not taken seriously the threat from Russia. They have refused and failed to do an investigation into Russian interference within their own party, despite the fact that their Welsh leader was convicted of the links, the real serious problems in terms of the links to Russia. They have not taken seriously.
Yvette Cooper there speaking on Sky News this morning. Well, to go through many of these different issues, John Rentoul is with me, Chief Political Commentator at The Independent. John, you're very welcome to the programme. Good morning.
Hello, Peter. Delighted to be here.
Well, it seems a bit warmer, certainly, where in the places we are than perhaps Yvette Cooper was in Munich. Let's see what she said the first about the vetting process and Mandelson, because, of course, there have been failures there, certainly. We know as well Lord Doyle, Matthew Doyle, has lost the Labour whip. He's not allowed to sit as a Labour peer in the House of Lords anymore because of his association with a paedophile. It's not a good look, is it, John?
Yes, they've shut the stable door since the horse is long gone, or various horses have long gone. It's not very convincing. I mean, the problem is that Keir Starmer can't say the truth, which is that he knew that Peter Mandelson was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. He didn't know the full extent of it, and he decided to take a risk on the full extent.
I mean, in fairness, he did admit that. That was a sort of slightly jaw-dropping moment at Prime Minister's questions a couple of weeks ago. But you're right in regard to the extent of things.
Yeah, but he didn't say what his real calculation was, which was that he thought that it was worth taking that risk in order to get a trade deal with the Trump administration. He thought Peter Mandelson was the person to do that. And, you know, Peter Mandelson, to be fair, did actually secure a trade deal with the US. It wasn't very good, but we did escape the worst of the Trump tariffs.
I'll take a worse trade deal to not have a paedophile's best pal as our ambassador in America, I must say. But it's funny, what I see, and maybe I'm totally wrong on this, and tell me if I'm totally wrong, and that's fine, but I see a pattern emerging here of Starmer being led by other people, outsourcing various things to various people, and not taking decisions himself. And also, he presented himself as, you know, Mr. Rules, procedure, detail as well. And someone who didn't really take risks, actually someone who was quite a sensible adult in the room kind of thing. We just haven't seen any of that, have we?
No, I mean, competence and integrity were his two big pitches for taking over from the Conservatives, and he's blown himself up on both. And that's why he's in such deep trouble. And the idea, as he's telling the Sun on Sunday today, that he's going to fight the next election, I think is looking increasingly delusional.
So what happens next?
Well, I mean, what's surprising, of course, is what didn't happen last week, which is that Angela Rayner held back from the 81 names that are to launch a leadership challenge. It's not the right time, or he doesn't actually have the 81 MPs supporting her. I mean, I would have thought you could get a fifth of the parliamentary party at some point in the next year or so to support Angela Rayner or another candidate against Keir Starmer. And if that happens, then that's pretty much the end of him, because I don't think the Labour members are going to vote to keep him in office.
It's fascinating. Does he soak up the toxicity of the local elections? I mean, in terms of the timing, what's your kind of instinct, and what are you hearing?
Well, what I'm hearing is people endlessly saying, he's finished without saying when. And the problem with the by-election in Gorton, just coming up in the next few days, and the local elections, is that people already know they're going to be bad, and so that won't necessarily deliver the shock to the system that will oust the Prime Minister. I suspect it's going to be something else. Something else is going to happen, and he's going to do something else. He's going to make a mistake, make a bad decision, and that's going to trigger another convulsion. And this time, Angela Rayner will come forward with 81 names.
Can I ask you what you think about this astonishing story in the front of the Sunday Times today? Labour activists paid for a smear campaign against journalists, a group that helped make Starmer leader hired lobbyists who falsely suggested reporters for the Sunday Times were linked to Russia. Josh Simons was the head of Labour Together. He's now a Labour MP, and I'm going to read out what he has tweeted on this in a second. We have asked him on the programme, but what a crazy story, John. What is your take on it?
I mean, it's an outrageous story that a Labour think tank should respond to criticism of it for failing to file its accounts, which is what this is all about, by in effect hiring. I mean, it's a public relations company, not a private investigator. But I mean, hiring people to in a sense try to discredit the journalists involved. I mean, the other thing to say about it, of course, is that very poor value for money. I think spending £35,000 to produce a report that didn't find anything,
especially when it's backfired on them rather dramatically. I do find Josh Simons's statement on Twitter. We've asked him on the programme this morning, and he's very welcome to come on between now and 12 o'clock, or indeed tomorrow, Tuesday or Wednesday on the programmes I'm presenting between 1 and 4. He says this is nonsense. APCO, which is the APCO, which is the company, the public affairs or the PR company, were asked to look into a suspected illegal hack, which has nothing to do with the UK journalists at the Sunday Times, Guardian, or any other brilliant UK newspaper. APCO's investigation never fully got to the bottom of this. Those who know me know I think the world of journalists vital to our democracy. Well, there were 10 pages in this report which were specifically about two Sunday Times journalists, their Whitehall editor and deputy political editor. So it's not really nonsense, is it?
it doesn't. That's not a totally convincing denial. But I mean, I haven't seen the report. I haven't read the full Sunday Times account of it. But I don't think there's any getting away from the fact that this is disgraceful behaviour.
And actually, Stella Creasy, who's another Labour MP, genuinely shocked to read this. She says the ecosystem of think tanks and campaigns around a political movement should nourish it with ideas and energy, not pollute it in this way. It's shameful, says Stella Creasy. I want to talk a little bit about a new political party that's been set up, Restore Britain. This is Rupert Lowe's party. He was a Reform UK MP, then he left quite acrimoniously, very acrimoniously left Reform UK. He is now a single MP, an independent MP, but he set up this new political party called Restore Britain. We've got Restore Britain, we've got Advance UK under Ben Habib, we've got Reform UK as well, which is, of course, the market leader, I suppose. What do you make of these new political parties being set up?
What happened to Lawrence Fox? Didn't he have a party called Reclaim?
Reclaim, yeah. I think
there's a lot of parties with names very similar to Reform.
I think it still exists. Reclaim won less than what when Lawrence Fox stood to be Mayor of London. He won less than 1%, and I thought maybe he could have a slogan, for Reclaim. If you've lost an election that you don't believe was your fault, Reclaim. Could work very well.
I think I've got lots of suggestions for party names that sound a bit like Reform. If they if anybody else, if any other sort of one-man band wants to set up a party, you could have renew, revamp, repair, recycle, refresh, refangle.
There is respect, of course, as well.
Respect, I'd forgotten about that.
Well, George Galloway, yeah, indeed, yeah.
No, I mean it's still just Rupert Lowe, isn't it? It's
well, he does have quite a number of members. I mean, there are a lot of people who really do feel very, very strongly about his opinion and his offering here.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it took Reform. It took Nigel for a long time to break the first past the post. He's been around for a very long time,
yeah.
Just setting up different parties, UKIP, Brexit Party, and now Reform. He's finally broken through to the big time. But I don't think our electoral system makes it very, very difficult, and there just isn't enough space, I think, to the right of Reform for yet another party. So I think this will go the same way as the rest of them.
Okay. John, thank you very much as always. That is John Rentoul there, who's the chief political commentator at The Independent. You've been getting in touch as well. Julie says, morning Peter, listening to the listeners' comments about Ben and Rupert, do you not think that Nigel Farage may be responsible for the split on the right? He was the one who threw Rupert out. Well, listen, success has many fathers, failures and orphans, so I'm sure all of them, both Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, would say that neither of them was responsible for it. Emma has been in touch and says, good morning, Peter. Good morning, Emma. Yvette Cooper's comments are laughable. They can't even get to grips with vetting the illegal immigrants like we are going to believe they're going to vet their own staff properly. They've already proved they can't do that either, says Emma. So thank you for that. Also, I want to hear a voice note from Damon, who has some thoughts on representation. Who's actually representing us here in the UK and what the British political parties are up to? This is what Damon says.
Good morning, Peter. Damon from Wigan. I think over the last 20 years, all values of all parties have seriously gone down and through the floor. They don't respect the British people, they don't represent the British people, and they will never defend the British people. Maggie Thatcher's time has been and gone, but at least them politicians did have values at heart, unlike today's parties. And the other thing is, Peter, if you could tell me, is Jack having counselling after the death of Palmerston? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damon. Jack is not having counselling after the death of Palmerston. I have kept that news from him, but certainly Palmerston has left us. And actually, I've been writing an article for the Times newspaper about Palmerston. So if you pick up your copy of the Times newspaper tomorrow, you're going to see 750 words on Palmerston, which I've been writing, and I wrote that yesterday. So that will be there, paying tribute, of course, to the great cat who has very sadly left us. He had this incredible life, actually. He went from being on the mean streets of London as a stray, scooped up by the brilliant people at Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, and then he was made chief mouser at the Foreign Office, and then he went off to the country to kind of retire, and the guy who, the civil servant who got him, was made governor of Bermuda. So off Palmerston went to Bermuda, where he spent the last year of his life. Really quite a cat. And of course today is 15 years since Larry the cat arrived at Downing Street. I love all that stuff. I'm a big fan of cats and animals in general, as you know. Lots more thoughts coming your way from our viewers and listeners. We'll talk about the royal scandal. We'll talk as well to Nigel Farage's biographer about what he thinks about the threat from Rupert Lowe as well to Reform UK. Whatever your view is today, whatever is on the tip of your tongue, whatever you want to say, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch, including Mary in County Down, who says Labour's pathetic distraction strategy in Munich has worked with the craven mainstream media but won't work with the electorate, says Mary. The cynical press conference about the Navalny poisoning and Starmer's stupid and irrelevant attack on reform show just how Labour is on the run. It took Marco Rubio to show Starmer and other European leaders how leadership should be done. I'm a huge fan of Marco Rubio. I think he speaks a lot of sense. I'm not a big fan of every single thing Donald Trump does, but I think Marco Rubio is a really, really good Secretary of State, and he is someone who advises Trump well, I think, and he calms things down sometimes when that is needed to be done. He was in Munich as well, of course, for the Americans. It's interesting too, I think, about Munich because, as we've discussed a little bit earlier on in the programme, there were hundreds of thousands of people protesting for the Iranian people against the horrendous Islamic Republic regime in Iran. Barely a mention on many of the media outlets that I have seen. That is not a story we are ever going to shy away from. That is not something that we're not going to talk about. I was, as I said a little bit earlier on in the programme, I saw some pro-Iranian people activists in London yesterday. They had the true Iranian flag, and I was chatting to a few of them. There was one woman who was pretty emotional about her cause, about what she was saying, and I said to her, it's so disappointing. You know, where are these people who say, these pro-Palestinian protesters who say they care about women's rights, about human rights? Where are they? They're not protesting for the women and indeed the men of Iran, and the children as well, who are being killed because of what is happening there. It's a story I'm going to return to in the next few days because I am filling in for Ian Collins on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. So I'll be on tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. I hope you can join me for those programmes. Richard in Northampton says, I believe the vast majority of MPs are in politics for personal reasons rather than principled reasons. Keir Starmer is a prime example of a man with little or no integrity, in Richard's opinion. He will say or do anything in order to stay in power. He is a man with little self-awareness. Unfortunately, the electorate are in large numbers too politically illiterate to ever get this country back on track. I fear for my grandchildren's future, says Richard. I want to talk as well today between now and 12 o'clock about the Epstein scandal, and we will talk about that in a few minutes with some guests. But I want to bring in Chris from Epsom, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Chris, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say this morning?
Hi, Peter. It's been a while since we've spoken, but I'm a bit fed up with people not giving the full story about the Epstein scandal and how deep it goes. First of all, Epstein committed suicide, so they say, whilst on suicide watch, and when the videotapes are eventually released, they've been doctored and there's 2 minutes missing. His partner of 35 years, Jean-Luc Brunel, was arrested and imprisoned in France, waiting trial, on suicide watch, and he managed to commit suicide as well, while the CCTV was waiting for maintenance. Then you've got Virginia Defray. She supposedly committed suicide.
I don't think there's any question, Chris, about whether Virginia Giuffre took her own life or not. I think it's fine to say on Jeffrey Epstein, on the other case that you mentioned there, I think that's fair enough to raise that question. I don't think there's any real question about Virginia Giuffre taking her own life.
All right, let me put this to you and you see if there's a question to it. She left a death tape, should she be die, which said that she wasn't going to commit suicide, and they got to her. Now, that the publisher of Defray's book, the book was published after her death, the publisher has also gone public and said she's left death tapes with other law firms and people she trusts should anything happen to her, because she's got more stories that Virginia Defray didn't put in her first book.
Well, let's talk about what we do know rather than what we're speculating about, Chris, because you do have some good points there. The point is that Virginia Giuffre was an incredibly brave person who put a lot of stuff in the public domain at great risk to her reputation, to her. She went public, she spoke about being raped, she spoke about being trafficked. She was a very, very brave person and began to tell us the truth about what Epstein and his vast network of friends and colleagues were up to.
Yeah, exactly. And Epstein was all... Anybody that met Epstein and spent more than 15 minutes in his company would have known he was a wrong 'un. Well, that's an absolute fact. I spoke to him in 1998.
Why did you speak to him in 1998, Chris?
I was doing the security for somebody in London, who I won't mention.
Sure.
And he managed to get hold of the principal's telephone number, private telephone number. The principal asked me to call him and see what he wanted and what he was about.
When you're talking about the principal, you're talking about the person you're guarding there. That's what security guards call the person they're guarding. Yeah, just for people who might not know that. Yeah.
I spoke to him for 15 minutes at his Florida home. He was very charming at first, but it was obvious what he wanted. He wanted to meet influential people in London. That's why he had contacted my principal, because my principal was well connected. Mm-hmm. I felt that he was a wrong one within 15 minutes. I advised my principal of what I thought, and the principal had nothing to do with him and wouldn't accept the calls or meet him.
Very interesting, Chris. Yeah.
And you know, I'm no psychologist, but I've been around a bit, and if I can make that assumption within 15 minutes, and that was before he was ever charged with anything, then everybody else came.
Well, that's why you were in the job you were in, because your job for your principal, whoever that person was to make a very clear and concise judgment on the people who wanted a bit of that person's time and perhaps influence as well. Chris, very, very interesting to talk to you on that point. Thank you. That's Chris in Epsom there. Mary in Hemel Hempstead is our next caller. She's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. You can do the same thing between now and 12 o'clock. Mary, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, it was just that there seems to be a pattern here with Starmer, with lords and paedophiles. Carl Beach, do you remember?
The fantasist, yeah.
Well, Tom Watson was with him, and then next minute Tom Watson's made a lord in as well.
Well, Tom Watson was deputy leader of the Labour Party. I think it was actually after he became a lord. No, it wasn't. You're right. Sorry, he was right. You're right. It was before he was made a lord. Yes, he made a lot of very, very questionable, well, completely wrong claims about what Carl Beach had said. A lot of people believed Carl Beach perhaps because it was politically expedient to do so, and the lives of of many totally innocent people, like Leon Britton, for example, were absolutely ruined by those allegations.
Yeah, and Harvey Proctor, but the thing is that he was suspect really all along the way through, but they weren't sure.
Yeah.
But and it was Tom Watson who pressurised the police to pursue an investigation, which turned out to all be false.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing. And Carl Beach, of course, himself was in prison and was convicted of a number of absolutely heinous crimes. Mary, a good reminder there, and thank you for it. Andrew's in Hertfordshire. He's given me a ring too on 03444991000. Andrew, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good morning. Crackerjack of a programme. You do very well. There's a horrible expression from Northern Ireland, you can run but you can't hide.
Yes.
Which was used against, it's a terrible expression, but it actually plays out very well with the Labour Party at the moment. They actually are running away from reality and they can't hide the fact that they've let the electorate down. And the more they speak like this about Nigel Farage, he doesn't need to do anything because it just makes him stronger. They are managers, not leaders. There is not a single policy. You are in Westminster, you understand it. What is the policy that they've driven through? All Starmer can say is free school meals, which is an anomaly, really, because you have
breakfast clubs. Breakfast clubs. I actually have challenged Labour ministers at various points when I've interviewed them, Andrew, and I've said, without saying the words breakfast clubs, can you tell us what you've achieved in the last 18 months?
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that now they become more and more further to the left. And the thing that's terrible, Peter, in our lifetime, that poor young girl, 12, raped by that asylum seeker. Starmer told us he would smash the gangs and solve the problem. And that girl's life, she's serving a life sentence.
Yeah.
Please God, she gets the best counselling and everything like that. Your heart goes out to her and her family. But he has failed. And the problem you got, Peter, is that lawyers go into court with a brief, they say it, and then no one ever comes back to them. And then they walk out, have a big glass of claret with their friends at Lincoln's Inn Field, and they just look down on the rest of the world, which they call muggles. And that's his problem. He just thinks because he says it, that's enough. He's not delivered anything. Neither have they. And Nigel Farage gets stronger every single moment of the day.
It's a very interesting point, Andrew. Just before you go, do you think Nigel Farage will be worrying very much about Restore Britain, about the party now headed by Rupert Lowe, who was in Reform UK, now setting up a new political party?
It's a great tragedy, isn't it? You know, if you and I fell out over something, you'd think that we'd be able to go to lunch, sit down, and sort it out. They're very strong individually. They would be so strong together. It's just, you know, it's a classic British thing, isn't it? So certainly in English walk, to seize defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, indeed. And if Labour were to fail, would you have any sympathy for Keir Starmer, or actually would you perhaps employ another phrase from Northern Ireland, slap it up you?
Yeah, that would be good. All I think about is, if I were a woman or a young girl, or I were Jewish walking around the streets of central London, I realised London's not safe and the country is anti-Semitic and it's at his feet.
Andrew, thanks for your thoughts this morning. Strong thoughts from Andrew there. Let's speak to Maria in Gloucestershire. She's the next caller. Maria, what would you like to say?
I was reading some Searchlight, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it seems that Rupert Lowe is attracting some very, very bad people, as in case of Steve Law.
We've certainly had, and I'm not quite sure about Steve Law, I know who you're talking about, but certainly we've had various people saying that there are supporters that they've seen online saying things they're not happy with. That's not necessarily Rupert Lowe's fault, but are you concerned about Restore Britain?
No, it wasn't that. It's what he said.
Okay.
It's what he said quite clearly and very, very loudly. He said, Rupert Lowe is our leader.
So Steve Laws has said that now.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I said that, and that was actually in Searchlight, which is a pretty good medium to go by.
Yeah.
And I do actually think that he is going to attract these very far-right fascist idiots.
Okay, well, listen.
They're becoming more and more. I mean, I don't understand why Rupert Lowe is doing it.
Okay, well, that in itself is not necessarily Rupert Lowe's doing, that Steve Laws has said. I just want to be very clear about that. But Maria, listen, thank you for that. There are certainly concerns about who's supporting who. We will continue to cover that, of course, in this station. Tim is in London and has some thoughts on Rupert Lowe. You're very welcome to the programme, Tim.
Hi, Peter.
Hi there.
I'd like to say that pragmatism has to be brought into play here. Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, I don't doubt they're very well intentioned, but if deep down they want a centre-right party in government, all they're doing by fracturing the centre-right vote is playing beautifully into the hands of Labour and the Greens. You know, it's a great idea in principle to have your own party that you believe in and you believe other people will follow you, but politics is about pragmatism sometimes, and if you want reform in, then people can't vote for Advance or whatever Rupert's...
Restore Britain. Restore Britain.
You know, lovely idea, but the reality is, and I find it disappointing that people who are so well entrenched into the political system can be this naive.
Well, Tim, it's interesting you mention that because, I mean, I mentioned a bit earlier about how fractured unionism can be in Northern Ireland, how many different parties there are over the years and how that has weakened unionism, has weakened the cause. And I do think that could well be an effect of what happens with the kind of message, and not too different a message, as you've correctly pointed out, that Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage have, that what they actually want to do and what their thoughts are. They have differences in some policies, but not loads.
No, I agree. And if only they could all get around the table, bury the hatchet, ideally not in each other's heads, and get together, would be, you know, anybody with a bit of common sense looking in on this ought to be able to say to these people, you know, hang on a minute, chaps. Just think about what you're trying or not trying to achieve here. Yeah. If you want a centre-right government in, don't split the centre-right vote.
Tim, very, very interesting thoughts there. Thank you for them. That was Tim giving me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Rebecca in Bolton says, Rupert Lowe is a straight-talking man with kindness in his heart, and I'm so glad he has shifted Restore Britain from a movement into a political party. I'm just concerned that the excellent strides Reform UK have made will be diluted. I wish them, alongside Ben Habib, would get together, but I know that won't happen. So although I'm happy that Rupert Lowe has emerged, I'm also confused on how best to vote to save our country, reform or restore. I'll be keeping an eye on the situation, says Rebecca in Bolton. Graham in Bushy says it's ironic Starmer and the other cabinet members are at the World Security Conference only 2 weeks after granting planning permission for China's super embassy, which has several suspicious rooms in the basement, says Graham. Very, very good point. And thank you to Lisa in Chelmsford, says it's a miserable morning in Chelmsford, but thank you. Thankfully you're here to take our minds off the rain and snow. I'm so glad you mentioned Marco Rubio a little bit earlier on. Not only was his speech in Munich word perfect, but it was delivered with sincerity and eloquence. I only hope that European leaders take on board everything he had to say. I urge all your listeners to watch the speech, which is available in full on YouTube. Have a look after 12 o'clock, not during this programme. Elisa says, I for one hope Marco Rubio will be President 58. And Jason in the Lake District says, Chris in Epsom should write a book about his life. Very, very interesting thoughts from that. Just a voice note before the break. This is from Elle, who has some thoughts on reform and the right.
Supported Nigel for the last 10 years. I was very upset when Ben Habib went and Rupert Lowe. I thought they were the best thing that happened to them. But I've been holding fire thinking, oh, well, you know, let's see what happens. Let's see. You don't want to split the vote because then we could end up with a coalition of Labour and Green. Can you imagine? The last straw for me was Nadim Sahari with his stance on the vaccine programme. Enraged me because I'm anti-vax. I've just joined Restore Britain. I think him and Ben will actually make a coalition between them, unite the right, and I think they will win at the next election.
Elle, thank you for that. We're going to talk about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, Jeffrey Epstein and the continuing scandal, the continuing revelations in just a minute here on Talk. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, further revelations on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew leaked secrets and met a Chinese model at a secret dinner. As Epstein boasted, "I've got the UK sewn up." That's what the Mail on Sunday is saying. A damning dossier means there must be a probe. At the same time, Stephen Parkinson, who's the Director of Public Prosecutions, says he's total confidence detectives will examine any relevant evidence that may point to potential criminality. Nobody is above the law, he said. It's my job to enforce the law, and I do without fear or favour. That is unaffected by the status of the individual concerned. We know that officers at Thames Valley Police are examining claims that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor may have committed the offence of misconduct in public office by leaking confidential reports to Epstein after trips to Southeast Asia and Afghanistan during his time as UK trade envoy. Meanwhile, Andrew accused of taking one of Jeffrey Epstein's closest confidants on an official UK government trip to Asia. David Stern apparently accompanying Andrew on his publicly funded visit to Hong Kong and the Chinese city of Shenzhen in October 2010. The German citizen is trusted business contact of Epstein's at the time of the trip. I mean, this just goes on and on and on. All this detail is coming out every single day about the clear questions that need to be asked. I'm going to ask some of those questions now of Linda Jubilee, who is a journalist who knows all about this. Linda, thank you for joining me today on the programme. What do you make of the latest revelations?
Well, as you say, it's like a tsunami of stories that keeps moving forward all the time, and we're nowhere near at the end of all of this. If you think it's said that there are 3 terabytes of information that have come out so far, and 11 terabytes of information actually exist, it gives you some idea that probably we're only at the tip of the iceberg right now. And really, someone has said, we need to check the veracity of the quote, that Prince Andrew always said that Andrew was an accident waiting to happen. This has been apparent to the royal family and to the royal household that Andrew has always been a bit of a liability.
So do you then see the King saying, of course, we'll cooperate with Thames Valley Police? If you see, Prince Edward, for example, saying it's about the victims, if you see the statement, a very similar statement from the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate as well, William and Catherine, do you think that actually that's perhaps hollow? Could they have done more previously?
I think previously, many members of the royal family, including the late Queen, it is sad to say, who probably did turn a blind eye to some things, should have been paying attention much earlier. Andrew became a UK trade envoy in 2010, and really, as Andrew Lowney writes in his book, and it's a very diligently researched book, almost from the get-go, he was abusing those trips. Going early, staying late, making contacts for his own business interests, using contacts that he was supposed to be making for the British country, paid for by the taxpayer. That has been going on for a very long time, and no one has acted on it. I will say this, though. I do think that Prince William will and has shown that he wants to act. He said very clearly he did not want Andrew on the royal estate at Windsor. It's in his interest to make sure this is cleaned up in the most thorough and diligent way possible, because he doesn't want a stain on his reign.
Very true. What should happen now then? What can all these different agencies and parts of the state, not just here in the UK but also in America, actually do about this? It was Emily Thornberry, the chairwoman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, who came on my programme a couple of months ago and said the only 3 people who have actually faced any consequence for, the only 3 living people who've actually faced any consequence for what Epstein did are all British. Peter Mandelson, Andrew himself, of course, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison.
That's true. And a lot of people say to me, well, the only person who's really suffered this, who's now undergoing a 20-year jail sentence, is a woman. But the fact is...
She's also a paedophile.
She was at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
So she automatically had to have the highest possible punishment. And I hope that she does not get a presidential pardon and come out early. But I think now that all of the authorities have to investigate this very thoroughly, not just because of the specifics of this case, which are truly horrendous and global in nature, but because never have I known as a journalist, and I've been a journalist for a very long time. I covered Prince Andrew, the then Prince Andrew's relationship with Sarah Ferguson. I covered the royal wedding. I've covered many, many royal stories as a Fleet Street journalist, but never have I known people's complete mistrust in the bigger institutions, which are supposed to show us a great example. Never have I known that level of trust diminish the way it has now.
And what about the monarchy itself? Do you think trust in the monarchy is there? Because we still have many people who support the monarchy, say it's all wonderful and that's something that an institution that should continue. But when you have someone who is at the heart of it, well, not anymore, of course, he's been stripped of his titles, but he's still a member of the family. We can't change that. I just wonder what sort of confidence in institutions has really been the story of the last 50, 60 years of trust in those institutions going. I just wonder what your thoughts are in regard to the monarchy and how people view it now, particularly as we had not just Andrew, but also politically Peter Mandelson up to their neck in this.
I think that that people still think very, very highly of our late Queen, a woman whose duty she served us from a very, very early age, and people are on side with her memory. And I do think that they believe that King Charles has done an excellent job since he ascended to the throne. But after that, I think we need now to be putting everything under the microscope, because, as I said, mistrust in the royal family and in the other big institutions in this country has never been at such a low ebb. And it comes at a time, it's like a perfect storm. It comes at a time when we are politically at a disadvantaged state. We see politics really fractured. We see Keir Starmer hanging by a thread for a whole week, and he's still not in a safe position. We see people that don't believe he's kept his manifesto promises. We see the Conservative Party, which faces, I think, maybe annihilation in the next general election. So we are faced with terrible, terrible broken trust in our country. And I think amongst the people who can do some good here is Prince William. He needs to take the reins now and show us that he is capable of reigning effectively, diligently, and with integrity.
Linda, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Linda Jubilee there, who is a journalist who's covered these issues, as she said in that interview, for a very, very long time. What do you think about what she said there? 0344 499 1000. There's still time for calls between now and 12 o'clock. Slightly shorter show today because of our FA Cup coverage after 12, but we will get your call in if we can. Give me a shout, 0344 499 1000. And I want to play a voice note just before the break, actually, from Tony on his thoughts on the politics, all the stuff we're talking about today on splitting the right. I'm going to talk to Michael Crick, the journalist and broadcaster, about all of that in just a minute, but let's hear what Tony has to say.
Morning, Peter. Great show. It's Tony from Enfield. Yes, with Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe forming two different parties, this isn't by chance. I mean, Ben and Rupert get on well, but this is a strategic move to put pressure on Nigel Farage. So they're a pressure group they're pressure group parties coming together to force Nigel Farage to do as they wish, like where immigration's concerned and all that sort of stuff. That's my take on it. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but why form two different parties that basically are going to do the same thing? Ben and Rupert see eye to eye. So, like I say, why not form just one party? But, yeah, I rather suspect this is all about pressure on Nigel and reform.
Well, it's really interesting you mention all of that, Tony. I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I also think that, you know, we've heard from Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, there have been suggestions that maybe those two parties, Advance UK and Restore Britain, will actually combine or have some sort of pact or not stand against one another or something like that anyway. Very, very interesting. Can I just also say, I know this is really, really minor point, but I just love hearing the fact that Tony was out and about. I love the fact that he was walking I love thinking of how people listen and watch the show, whether they're at home, whether they're out and about, whether, someone told me he takes his baby granddaughter for a walk every Saturday morning and listens to my shows. I love all that, and the fact that Tony was clearly walking there, I could hear that, out and about, maybe a nice country walk on a reasonably foggy day, but maybe better where he is there, and recording his voice note and sending that in. Wherever you are, you can make your voice heard here on Talk. And we'll try and get more calls, text, tweets and voice notes before 12 o'clock. We're also going to speak to Michael Crick, the journalist and broadcaster, about what he has written, an excellent biography, actually, of Nigel Farage, what Nigel Farage will be thinking of Restore Britain and Advance UK, and also this astonishing, shameful story on the front of the Sunday Times. Great story, but horrendous that it happened. Labour activists paid for a smear campaign against journalists. What on earth is going on? 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Michael Crick is a broadcaster and journalist who he's written many brilliant books. One of them is about Nigel Farage, called One Party After Another. He has quite literally written the book on Nigel Farage. So I wanted to ask him what he thinks about Restore Britain being established as a political party and Advance UK as well. We know that Nigel Farage, Michael, of course, has been in how many political parties? You'll know. Conservatives at one stage, UKIP, Brexit Party, and now Reform UK. Am I missing any?
Well, no, not really. He voted Green as well in the 1989 Euro elections.
Okay.
He actually tried in 2004 to become a Conservative MP while he was. This was while he was a European MP, a UKIP one, and he went to see Sir Paul Beresford about the possibility of becoming the Conservative candidate for Tunbridge Wells, which in those days was a safe seat for the Conservatives.
Right.
And that didn't get anywhere. And then, of course, you mentioned Brexit. Well, Brexit sort of just renamed itself as the Reform Party. So really, he's been a member of three parties, but it gets very, very complicated.
Certainly.
And of course, the more extreme you get in British politics, the more that the parties become splintered. And, you know, it's minor differences that the general public can't possibly understand.
Yeah, it's funny, actually. Someone said to me a while ago about your party and what its name was going to be. And they said it's a bit People's Front of Judea versus the Judean People's Front, to which I said, of course, they would call it the People's Front of the West Bank. But anyway, there we are. Michael, I just wondered.
the problem with your party is the confusion. Whenever I say it, you say, well, I don't belong to a party.
Yes, your party. No, it's your party. Yes, exactly. So what do you think of Advance
What's the
UK?
first name in party history? Yes.
What do you think of Advance UK and Restore Britain then? How much is Nigel Farage going to be worried about this? And of course there is the personal relationships that mould politics in this country, and the fact that, as you know probably better than any other biographer, you know that Nigel Farage has fallen out with so many people over the years, one of them being Ben Habib, one of them being Rupert Lowe, and now they're setting up two rival parties. Well, Advance UK has been around for a while, but Restore Britain has just been set up.
Yeah, I mean, and they have a common complaint, which was that Farage was far too dictatorial within his party. I mean, there were policy differences as well. They didn't think Farage was tough enough on immigration and his immigration policies. But it will be a serious irritation to Farage, in as much as if these parties stand, and Rupert Lowe's pretty well, both of them, Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, are pretty wealthy. If they stand, and even more if they merge or have a pact, then they will take votes away from Reform UK, and they may take members away and take donors away, in much the same way, of course, that Reform UK have done the same when it comes to the Conservative Party. And I mean, the pressure is on Farage to move to the right on immigration and other issues. But of course, if he does that, then that will put off the new people he's hoping to attract to Reform UK, members of the supporters of the Labour Party, even Liberal Democrats. And so he's got to be careful about this. But you know, hey, that's politics. But I think it would be make more of an impact if they really do get their act together and form one party. And that will it'll get serious. I mean, if they start attracting more senior Reform people into their ranks, again, in the same way that Reform has attracted serious Conservatives. But I think supporters of all the other parties will just be having a good laugh about this, and be glad that he's got this problem. And Farage, throughout his career, has suffered extraordinary numbers of defections from his ranks, amongst his MEPs when he was in the European Parliament, and so on. And that is what will happen if Farage ever comes into government. There'll be constant resignations and defections and expulsions. It'll be like the Trump administration, Part 1.
Part 1, 1.0. Can I ask you as well about the story in the Sunday Times today? An absolutely astonishing, extraordinary, jaw-dropping story about Labour activists paid for a smear campaign against journalists. This is a group that helped make Starmer leader Labour Together, hiring lobbyists who falsely accused reporters of being linked to Russia. Michael, your take on this?
Well, I mean, this is an outrageous story, and their main target is Gabriel Pogrund, who is, I think it would be fair to say, the best journalist in Britain right now.
He's definitely one of the most decorated. I do fear for the structural integrity of his mantelpiece with how many awards he's won.
Yes, I mean, it's astonishing the number of scoops he comes up with, and he's still relatively young. So it is appalling. I mean, if you're a pressure group and somebody's investigating you, I suppose it's fair enough to try and work out a little bit more about them and about the journalist and what may motivate them and what their politics might be. But to actually spend £36,000 on a PR company to come up with a 58-page report, a report that includes all sorts of personal stuff about Gabriel Pogrund, much of it inaccurate, although I've not seen the report, it's not been published, I don't think, then is way over the top for a political pressure group. And there will be many people in the Labour Party saying, well, look, that £36,000 could have been much better spent on my election campaign or the election campaign.
Well, indeed, and there are some Labour MPs, some Labour MPs like Stella Creasy, for example, absolutely appalled by it. Michael, thank you. That's Michael Crick, the broadcaster journalist, author as well. He's written many books. One of them that was relevant to this conversation is about Nigel Farage. It's called One Party After Another, a biography of the Reform UK leader. Thank you to David in the Cotswolds, who says, I don't think someone as blatantly toxic as Andrew Windsor should have kept his dark secrets this secret if he wasn't protected. By that I mean his late mother and by his older brother. The veil has slipped from the old firm. It has dawned on many who were previously indifferent to the monarchy that they have been treating their subjects with contempt, says David in the Cotswolds. Final voice note today from Kelvin about the fracturing of the right. This is what Kelvin has to say.
Good morning, Peter. It's too late for other people to start forming parties. Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, they should leave it alone. We've got a party there and a good chance of getting Labour out. All they're doing is stuffing it up, and we'll end up with Labour then for another bloody 5 years. They're supposed to be intelligent men. And, you know, the rift between them and Nigel Farage, why don't they just repair it? If they're that desperate to get Labour out, and that desperate and really serious about running the country and getting it back on its feet, they should rejoin Reform. All of them. Get back into with Nigel Farage, put the differences aside, and take on this lot. Because having all these other fractions is just going to force people to vote here, there, and everywhere, and we'll be stuck with Labour for another 5 years after this. Bye.
Thank you very much indeed, Kelvin, for your thoughts there. Thanks to everybody who has contributed to the programme today, and indeed the people who've made the programme. Faith Eden has been the producer, Luke Behan has been the technical operator, Tommy Bateson, the assistant producer, Davis Fang and Louis Turgoose, the visual producers, Safia Ahmed